Joining us right now is Chris Miller, Tufts Fletcher School professor, also somebody who's been looking into this because he's got a book that's been written on this as well. He's the author of Chip War. Chris, I want to thank you for being with us this morning. Why don't we talk a little bit about what we've seen with Nvidia? This is a pretty big reversal to be able to sell those H20 chips into China. How important is it?
Well, it is a big reversal. The Trump administration just a couple of months ago announced they were going to ban the sale of the H20 chip into China, which is a chip that was specifically downgraded so that it would meet U.S. requirements for the ability to sell into the Chinese market. And now Trump's reversing that stance, allowing Nvidia to sell these chips again. Everything we've heard from the Chinese customers who would buy this chip suggests they want it in very large quantities. And we've seen Nvidia announce that billions of dollars of sales would stem from the ability to sell into China. So it's a big change, and it remains to be seen exactly what type of licenses the Trump administration is going to allow for Nvidia sales to Chinese customers.
I think the big question, though, is what the reasoning behind this was. Was it a concern that Nvidia and American technology would start to lose out to China if they weren't allowed to compete in that market?
Well, we saw that Jensen and President Trump met in the White House earlier this week. We've also heard senior administration officials say that the decision to allow H20 sales actually stems from the U.S.-China talks that were held several weeks ago, in which China allowed the shipment of rare earth magnets to the U.S., and the U.S. in turn lifted certain controls. It's unclear to me exactly what the primary driver was, and I think we've seen many twists and turns in the chip war, including under the Trump administration. And so we should wait further clarity for the administration as to just how broad the licenses it's going to grant will be. Right now, we've heard from Nvidia, but not really much from the administration yet in terms of the details.
But the H20 chip was one that's restricted. It doesn't have all the memory capabilities for specifically that reason. We didn't want them to have access to some of the things that could be used for military.
Yeah, that's right. The administration, when they banned the H20 chip, they made the argument that if China was able to buy H20s in the quantities of hundreds of thousands, that this would enable Chinese firms to compete with U.S. AI players and also to develop AI for strategic purposes. And companies like DeepSeek, like Alibaba, like ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, they've signaled a desire to buy large volumes of these chips because they need them. They've already built their AI models on NVIDIA systems, and Huawei, which is the competitor to NVIDIA, can't right now produce domestically the types of AI chips that are needed at scale. It has a small volume of production, but according to Trump administration officials, its production volumes are not likely to grow that much this year. So NVIDIA is still the largest player in this market. Even with its downgraded chips, they're still highly competitive in the Chinese market.
Give us an overview of where we stand in the chip war right now and where you think we'll be, let's say, a year, 2 years down the road, because things are happening at a pretty rapid clip.
Well, I think it's still the case that U.S. firms, along with their Taiwanese manufacturing partners like TSMC, are meaningfully ahead of Chinese competitors. If you take Nvidia and Huawei, both of which produce AI chips as an example, the fact that Nvidia is able to sell scaled down versions of its chips at large volumes in China shows that it's ahead of Huawei, which can't produce enough of its high-end chips to really be competitive. The fact that Huawei is also smuggling in still large volumes of chips and components for its chips from abroad shows the challenges it faces in terms of ramping up production. And so when it comes to chips, especially the ultra high-end AI chips that are needed for AI training and AI deployment, it's still the case that the U.S. is far ahead, which is why China is so desperate to import these chips at scale.
And what would happen if China tried to take over Taiwan?
Well, it wouldn't be good. The cost would be tremendous because when it comes to AI chips, as well as smartphone processors, PC processors, Taiwan's the producer of 90% or more of the most advanced chips. We've been making a bit of a progress in the U.S. building up our own domestic capabilities. TSMC from Taiwan is a big campus in Arizona they're developing, but this is still the early stages of what's going to be a very long process of beginning to diversify the semiconductor supply chain. There's still a ton of concentration in Taiwan.